Welcome to Unapologetically Sensitive, where you can learn, relate, laugh, and maybe even live a bolder, brighter life. I'm your host, Patricia Young. This is a weekly podcast where we explore the strengths we have because of our sensitivity and some of the challenges it poses as well. The information in this podcast is not a substitute for help from a licensed mental health professional. Hey there, to the creatives, healers, sensitives, and deep thinkers. How are you doing? We are just coming up on Valentine's Day. How are you going to show up for yourself? This episode is not about Valentine's Day. I'll tell you what it is in just a second, but Valentine's Day really can be a lot about expectations and disappointments. What I would encourage you to do is to think about what is it that you're wanting and needing, and can you give that to yourself or can you ask for it? I think that's all I have to say about Valentine's Day. This episode is really about being able to hold space for lots of contradicting feelings. We're having to do that a lot right now. This episode is not about COVID, but we're going on our third year now, and we've been in a lot of uncertainty, and with the new variants, there's a lot of uncertainty. We are having this collective experience, which I think is really helpful, and it's really stressful. I'm going to share some things that happened this last week, and the overall theme is, how can you have intense feelings that are strongly impacting your day-to-day functioning and be able to manage? There is usually some gratitude, some connection, some blessing among the intensity. And intensity isn't necessarily bad, but it can be very present. You also may be managing much better than you think, but it's just the expectation of what you think it's supposed to look like. I talk a lot about both and I've had a bumpy week. And I want to talk about these things that have come up and what it's looking like for me, because it's usually not this intense. It's been challenging. As you all know, I'm writing a book, and the good news is I finished my first draft of it. Well, by the time you hear this, it'll be a few weeks ago. I have been co-writing with people. We get on a Zoom call. We talk about what we're going to do in this time period. We decide when we're going to come back. And then we turn off our mics and camera and we do our writing. And when we came back, I had finished writing. This is about my experience. So I want to be very clear that this is about me and my reactions. So when we came back and I said that I had finished my book, the people that were on the call with me were very excited, and they, asked how I was going to celebrate, and they suggested going out to eat. Well, I'm not eating in restaurants right now during COVID. Everybody gets to choose what they want to do, but that doesn't work for me. And there were some other reasons why that wouldn't work for my husband and I. And the people on the call were talking about that they've been traveling, they've been eating in restaurants. And one of the people said to me, well, what if you just got it? Meaning COVID. Now, can I remind you, I just finished writing my book. This is not a discussion about COVID and what I would do, but it caught me off guard. And in the moment, what I said is, I don't know enough about long COVID, so that's not an option. It was very awkward. It was uncomfortable. I got off the call. When I got off the call, it took about 30 minutes. And what came up for me was, I'm a weirdo. I just finished writing this book about the strengths of being an HSP, and maybe I'm being too frightened about COVID. I have to tell you, I've back to this place of feeling really concerned, and I felt comfortable for a while. I mean, again, everybody gets to do what they want to do around safety precautions, but I've just been much more concerned, and it just activated something just really hard for me. And I ended up crying. I reached out to Jen Perry, bless her heart. She was able to be there for me in just a beautiful way. And in the moment, in the midst of this pain, I really felt this beauty of connection. This is that both and. And what I loved is Jen reminded me that this wasn't about me, and how sad it was that in this moment of celebration, these people just didn't have the skill or ability to attune to what was going on with me. They made it about them and them traveling and them eating in restaurants. And then this, what I'm going to say in my estimation, was an incredibly insensitive question about, well, what if you just got it? This was about me acknowledging that I just finished writing a book. In the moment, I knew I was just having a moment. And I really felt Jen's love. Even though I was feeling pain, I felt this sense of gratitude. It felt really risky to reach out in the moment. And I said to Jen, if you have different ideas around COVID right now, I don't want to hear it, because I just knew I was in this really fragile place. Jen suggested that I write an epilogue to the book. And I did. I sat down when we got off the phone and I wrote what was going on and how I was feeling. And since then, I've gone back and added some more to it. So it really ended up giving me an opportunity to write about what was going on. The other thing that I did is I went into my Facebook group once I felt a little bit more grounded, and I shared my experience, not looking for anybody to respond, but to say, I just had this great experience and I'm having these intense feelings, and we can have both of them. And I talked about feeling like a weirdo. And it was really beautiful because people in the Facebook group showed up and said, if you're a weirdo, I'm a weirdo too. And I really had this sense of, I do have my people and I'm not weird. And it was sad that these people weren't able to really attune and celebrate me in the moment. As y'all know, I also struggle with celebrating milestones. It's really, really hard for me. I had posted on Facebook that I'd finished my book. I'd been in my office for a while. And when I came out, my husband had seen on Facebook what I posted, and he congratulated me, and we figured out how to celebrate. So we had a beautiful celebration that night. We went out and got food and cooked at home and had a beautiful meal with sparkling juice and a fancy dessert. And it was very sweet. A couple of the places we went to pick up food, he said, we're celebrating the fact that my wife just finished her book. I really felt loved and seen in the midst of this really painful experience. The next couple of days was really hard for me. A couple of things happened, and somehow a trauma response got triggered, and I got my feelings hurt easily. I spent the next couple of days crying, very intense feelings, really caught me off guard. And in this group, I was feeling angry. I wanted to withdraw. I did some writing, trying to figure out how to move through my feelings. People were posting in the group asking for feedback, and I was just, I'm not going to respond. I'm angry, blah, blah, blah. I didn't say that. I'm just thinking this to myself. And then what I did was I posted in the group and I said, I'm going through something and I'm just pulling back right now. My plan is to be in group on Thursday. I don't know what that's going to look like when I show up, but I just want to name what's going on. This is really important for us to be able to name what is going on for us so that I wasn't withdrawing and punishing from an angry place. I still felt angry. I still didn't have it figured out. But as I was able to say what was going on, and with my husband, I let him know, I'm just really going through a hard time. And he's so sweet. How can I support you? What do you need? And I just need some space right now. And I just pulled back a little bit. Of course, I wanted to figure out, do I say anything to these people in the group? Do I not? But I let it be okay that I just didn't know what I was going to do. And when I was having these intense feelings, the two things that really worked for me was I either focused on work, I just kind of dug into some of the things that I needed to do, or I took time to rest. And for me, a lot of the time, what that looks like is being on TikTok or going to the bedroom and laying down. I just really tried to listen to what it was that I was needing. And then I can't, because people listen to the podcast and somebody told me something that they heard in confidence, I can't really give you too much specifics about this, but somebody said something about me to a friend in confidence. And then that friend thought it would be funny to tell me. And I honestly believe that she thought it was funny. And in the moment, I was able to respond to it. But in this space that I was at, I spent a couple of days just ruminating. And basically, this person that said something is just not wired like I am. I like depth. I like intensity. I like to be very candid about what's going on. And that obviously is not what this person likes. But that added to this sense of like, what's wrong with me? And I'm just getting my feelings hurt so easily. What I was able to do was to tell my friend, hey, I know you had no idea that this was going to be a problem for me, but in the future, if people say things about me that are not kind, it's probably better not to share it with me. If I'm in a solid place, it's fine. But if I'm in a place like this, it just kind of wrecks me. She was very apologetic. She had no idea. She has very thick skin. And these these people have said some things about her that she told me that I'd be appalled if any. I don't even know how people can say things like that, but that's a whole other story. The other thing that happened is I have a good friend, Melissa Childs, and we polo back and forth. And I was telling her, this is not my baseline. This is just not how I normally am. And I could tell, like I can feel it in my body when I'm just not in a solid place. It doesn't happen very often, but when it does happen, bleh. And she had reflected back in a polo to me something to the effect of, yeah, don't you hate when you're feeling really well or, you're doing really well. And then all of a sudden you're back to where you were before. And again, I felt so misunderstood because this is not where I'm at normally. And I struggled, like, do I say something? Do I not? Everything that people were saying just felt incredibly hurtful to me. So what I did the next time I left her a polo was I just said, hey, because I'm feeling really sensitive right now, I'm wondering if when you share things, if you can share about your own experience because I'm just feeling prickly and sensitive. And then she responded like, did I say or do something? And by then I had let it go. It wasn't a big deal. And I really debated because, what if I tell her and then she gets defensive, or you know what I'm talking about. I thought I'm going to risk it. And I shared with her how that landed with me. Fortunately, with the polo, I could go back and listen. Did she really say that? And then I felt some discomfort and I felt vulnerable to say this to her. And I realized how many of us have trauma that when we do tell our truth, people can come back and say, I didn't mean that. I didn't say that. You're being sensitive. I can't even say anything. Right? How many of you have heard that before? Expect to hear that. When she responded, she was so apologetic. And what she said was what she was thinking in her mind was not what came out of her mouth. I get that. And I believed her. And I got tearful when I was listening to her. It was very reparative. It was just a very positive experience. She thanked me for being vulnerable with her and trusting her. And this really created more trust and depth in our relationship, that she welcomed that feedback, owned her behavior, apologized. It was very healing. So in the midst of all this intense stuff going on, me being willing to take a risk created more depth and intimacy and some healing in my life and in our relationship. The next thing that happened was I paddled with these people, Pat and Brenda, and Pat had asked Brenda to paddle with him yesterday on Saturday, which is a couple weeks ago by the time you hear this. And Brenda asked me to paddle also. Brenda and I have been talking about safety on the water and having wetsuit tops. So if either one of us does fall in, we'll be a little bit more protected. And I was telling Brenda, she told me about a secondhand store where you can get sporting goods. And I'm like, I just can't even see myself trying on stuff, going to I'll just order it online. It'll be easier. Well, Brenda went to one of these places and she picked up a wetsuit top for me. I tried it on. I liked it. So I wore it yesterday. But I realized that I don't know if they're body image or sensory issues, but having stuff tight around my stomach makes me really uncomfortable. And then it was also tight around my neck. So I was a little bit uncomfortable. I was very grateful because that was incredibly kind and thoughtful of Brenda to think about me. The other thing is that the last time I paddled with Pat, everybody launches from this place where you launch off of a dock, which means you have to be skilled in getting in and out of your kayak off the dock. Where I launch from the bay, I just take my boat off my car, put it on the grass, take it down to the sand, and then get into it in the water. I'm not very skilled yet at getting in and out of my boat on the dock. So the last time Pat and I paddled, I parked at the bay and then paddled over to where the dock is. Also, when we meet at the docks, it means I have to take my boat off onto the carrier in the parking lot. So if I miss, I'm going to scrape up the bottom of my boat, which is not the end of the world. It's just things that I haven't done that I'm not super experienced with, but I had enough resilience. I want to master these things. I want to be flexible in all the ways that I can paddle and where I can launch from. So we met at the docks yesterday and we were talking about, Pat wanted to go straight out into the ocean. We normally paddle either north or south, so we're parallel to the shore. And I also realized I have this fear of going straight out into the ocean. Like, what if something happens? What if I fall out? What if I drown? I mean, my anxiety has just been unusually high and I've just been much more fearful. I'd say normally, maybe my anxiety runs at 20, 25, maybe 30%. But the part of me that's solid is much stronger. So it's just kind of quiet noise in the background. Recently, it feels like it's about 50-50. Like this dark side just wants to pull me in, just stay home. It's a safe place. And there's this other part of me that I want to be comfortable in the ocean. I want to be comfortable launching from the dock. I don't want to be fearful. I want to move through it. But it feels like it's about 50-50 right now. So when they said they were going out to the ocean, I didn't put the seasickness patch on. I didn't want to hold them back. They love ocean paddling. And I don't want to be the one to get out there and go, I don't feel well. So I told Brenda, why don't you two go out to the ocean and I'm going to paddle around the bay and I'm fine. And Brenda said, well, just paddle out to the end of the channel with us. I said, great. And then I let Pat know that I wasn't going to go out with them and explained why. And he's like, if you don't feel well, we'll turn around. How sweet is that? How many of us as HSPs feel like we're the weirdo, the odd one out? We hold people back. I know how much they love paddling on the ocean and I didn't want to hold them back. And to have people be there and be so supportive, I got to tell you, it just really touched me. So we're paddling down the channel and I'm having a lot of internal noise and it's loud. And Pat asked me to stop paddling for a minute. He couldn't see. He had no idea this was going on. I talked to him afterwards. I had my sunglasses on. But just in that stopping, I wanted to cry. All of this tension and stress and fear and anxiety that's building up, stopping for the moment brought it all up. And I was very clear. I was not going to process in the channel my feelings. I wasn't going to process right then. I really kind of wanted to pull it together. And when I'm in my kayak on the water, I want to be focused on kayaking. So I did a little internal family systems. The young part of me did not want to be in the kayak. So I figured out where that younger part could go. I was uncomfortable like 6 out of 10, which is pretty high for me for paddling. And again, I just compartmentalized. In the past, I've used mindfulness and I thought, I want to paddle. I'm just going to compartmentalize, put it aside. And I paddled out. And I have to tell you, to stimulate my vagus nerve, you can hum. So I started to sing a song about like, I am not my depression. Depression is not me. Like this stuff was just really heavy and thick. Nobody was close enough to hear me. So we're all okay. While we were paddling out, Pat wanted to paddle for a certain amount of time. I was not comfortable the whole time we were paddling out. I just wasn't. I can't tell you what it was. It was not feeling fun. I tried to enjoy the birds. I tried to enjoy the ocean. It was okay. And then this thing of always worrying about, am I going to get seasick? And if I get seasick, it means I have to paddle back when I'm seasick, which I've paddled for an hour and 20 minutes in the middle of the ocean before. So I know I can do it. But it's that tuning in that often is not real helpful for me when I'm feeling anxious. And at one point, I always keep these ginger candies on me in case I get seasick. And I started to feel something and I took one, and normally I would want to turn back. But I also am seeing that I'm starting to miss out on opportunities because of my fear and not wanting to get into a situation that I can't manage. I tend to be pretty quiet if I'm paddling and I'm struggling because I'm just trying to manage all the internal noise. And Pat had said, how are you doing? Do you need to turn back? And I wasn't seasick. I just wasn't having fun. And I think he said, are you having fun? I'm like, not yet. But I said, let's just keep paddling. We finally hit a point where Pat said, let's turn around. The wind had started to pick up, which helped. I didn't realize I was really hot wearing that wetsuit top and my life jacket. It was hot and the wind started to pick up and the breeze felt really refreshing. I think it was actually a little unsafe when we turned around. They said what was going on and I don't understand. They keep talking to me about the swells and the wind and the current and the this and the that. And as long as I'm with them, I just follow them. But we had to angle in something about the swells not hitting us from behind, which can upset the kayak. I don't know. But as crazy as it is, there were more swells. They kind of pushed us. It was very swishy. I normally don't like it, but for some reason, I really enjoyed the paddle back. It was kind of fun and exhilarating, which made no sense to me. No sense to me at all. We got into the channel. It was a little bit rocky and there was a place where it was flat. And I was just paddling by myself and I was like, F COVID, F anxiety, F depression, F fear. Like this stuff I really feel like it's 50-50. The dark side is pulling at me. Again, nobody was close enough to hear me. We got back to the docks. We paddled 7.3 miles. I was really able to get in and out of my kayak with more ease than I thought. I did have some problems with my kayak carrier. Pat helped me reset it up. And then he and Brenda took off to go to their cars. And I was behind, very, very behind them. So when I went to get my boat off the dock, I kept running into the ramp. The boat slipped off. Somebody was very kind and helped me a couple times. It was not a big deal, but this is just new stuff. It's more stuff to contend with. When I got back to my car, it's a little complicated, but when we launch from the docks, usually what people do is they park near the docks, they unload, then they move their car across the street. For me, I'd just rather park across the street, unload my kayak, drag everything over there, drag everything back. So when I got back to my car, Brenda and Pat needed to drive their car back across the street to pick up their gear. And the day before, Brenda had talked about going to lunch afterwards. And I said, great. So we had talked a little bit. She spotted me as I got my kayak onto the car because I'm still not super comfortable doing that from the parking lot. I did fine. And then they left to go put their kayaks on their car across the street. And I just figured we were done. So I finished loading my kayak up and then I got in my car and I drove home. I remembered about lunch, but I figured she probably changed her mind. This is my insecurity. This is my thinking that she changed her mind. I just let it go. I got in my car and I'm just about to get off the exit to go home. And Brenda called and said, where are you? She says, we're going to lunch. I'm like, oh. And I told her, I said, I thought maybe you changed your mind and I just didn't want to make a big deal about it. And so I asked where they were going and I could have turned around, but it would have been 20 minutes to get back there. And I just thought it's okay. But I felt sad and I could see how my wounding around not being included and feeling like I wasn't going to be included, it hurt me. It just was very interesting. And I've noticed this pattern coming up recently that in the beginning of the year, my friend Jean had this walk, and I was somehow thinking that it was like one of those, like a big cancer walk. And I thought, too many people, I'm not going to find parking with COVID. I don't really want to be around a lot of people if they're wearing masks. And I didn't go. And then when Jean posted, it was like 7 of her friends. And Jean has the loveliest people. And I just did not read the email close enough. And I do this thing where I anticipate how something's going to be without getting more information. And then I feel sad that I missed out on things. And I'm just really looking at this. And again, this is that part of me that pulls up like, it's going to be crowded. You're not going to find parking. And I miss out on opportunities. While we were out on the ocean, Pat took some amazing videos. He took some pictures and he sent them to me and posted them on Facebook. It was amazing to see. And it wasn't until today when I was really talking about it that I'm appreciating the paddle, because the intensity of the feelings was so strong that I was more focused on, how much this dark stuff was pulling at me instead of these amazing pictures of seeing me paddling in the expansive ocean. And Brenda and I paddle together all the time, but he has pictures of the two of us paddling. And I don't normally have that experience of being able to watch what the two of us look like and to see what the swells look like. I mean, it was just very, very powerful. What I did during this time that I've been struggling is I still communicated. I stayed connected to my people. I took time to rest when I needed. I pushed when I needed. I was thinking like I have this internal self that's very dark and negative that seems pretty big right now. And if you only saw that part, it's a pretty dark part. If I didn't tell you about that, it looks like I'm doing these, it doesn't look like I am doing these amazing ocean paddles. I've been out in the ocean 3 times this week. I think I paddled close to 20 miles. Had some beautiful experiences and some intensity. And the intensity doesn't necessarily mean that it's a bad thing. And when it comes down to it, when I die, you could say, oh, Patricia lived a very safe, comfortable life, never left her house and was just happy and content. Or people can say she lived this amazing life where she paddled and challenged herself and wanted to keep growing and changing, even though things were hard. I didn't get seasick yesterday. I did really well, and I had some really uncomfortable feelings, and I was blessed to be around people that love and support me through all of my stuff. It doesn't get much better than that. So I was talking with a friend this morning about, we're jumping back to the writing group, because I was saying, I'm still feeling angry and uncomfortable. We had group on Thursday. I gave feedback to this person who, suggested maybe I should just get COVID. And I was feeling guarded and uncomfortable. And she said, well, what do you want it to look like? And I was thinking, what I thought it looked like is I should feel peaceful and lovey and all namaste. And I'm not there. As I was talking to her, I thought, I think I'm doing it all. I'm showing up. I'm giving feedback. I'm having feelings. I'm feeling hurt. I'm feeling angry. That's justifiable. I'm participating. I was kind and respectful to her. That can be enough. And that really made me think about this episode of, we can show up and have lots of feelings. We can have lots of experiences. We can have lots of intensity. It's not always comfortable. It takes a lot of energy. It may not be where you're always at. But when we have these periods of big feels, big hurts, we can navigate through it. So I'm going to jump to something really quickly, and then I'm going to come back to this subject. As some of you may know, we watched my son's dog over the holidays, and I loved it. We're looking for a dog. We're waiting for the perfect dog. And Josh sent me a video of his dog, and I said, I miss that boy. And Josh said, I can drop him off for a week. So my son is lending me his dog for a week because I love his dog. Anyways, going back to this concept of big feelings, do you judge yourself when you have strong feelings? Do you expect yourself to not have reactions? How do you care for yourself? When do you push? When do you rest? Do you communicate your needs, and do you ask for support? It's really okay to be in the messy middle. It's just a hard time right now. If you are struggling, if you need support, I have 1 or 2 spots open. I do coaching for anybody, any place in the world. You can get more information at unapologeticallysensitive.com. It's okay to not be okay. It's okay to have deep and intense feelings. It's okay to get your feelings hurt. It's okay to be angry and frustrated. Can you also notice the gratitude, the connection? And if you don't have that, what is keeping you from having it? And do you need to get extra support? This is a hard time right now, folks. There's a lot going on. And can you get in touch with both and? All right. I think that's all I have. I hope that you are your best Valentine if you celebrate Valentine's Day. If not, disregard. Remember, sensitivity is nothing to apologize for. It's our superpower. Have a blessed day.